Welcome back to SwitchCorner. My name is Alex and today we're taking a look at Road 96. This is a procedurally generated road trip and the idea you're fleeing what is an authoritarian nation. It's got high ambitions, this one, but can this adventure deliver? And I'm going to give you a warning here, this is an interesting one. There's a whole lot to discuss today, so hit subscribe if you love the Switch as much as we all do here. Join our growing family and let's get started. It's a story, and this one it's set in the fictional nation of Petria, run by an oppressive government. Its people find themselves at a divide with those that support, and then of course those that rebel. The nation's youth though particularly impacted, and with an upcoming election they are opting to not only fight back and protest, but also escape across a border found on the title Road 96. So here you'll be in control of not only one runaway teen, but actually multiple, as it's almost got a dash of roguelike to its formula, meaning you take on a character, you try to escape, you get as far as you can, and that can actually result in one or two things, either success or failure. Failure suggests you'll end up at what's known as the Pit, a slave mining camp where they send those that do disobey. Either way though, following a quick broadcast plays the Sonya show, a news network, and here you'll choose a new runaway to control, and it's on we go with this adventure. The concept is, yes, focused on escape, but the purpose of the game is more around meeting the locals, and while there's a decent amount of side characters in here, the core focus is really on 8 individuals who will pop up constantly, and they have all manner of backgrounds. So background wise, think a tech whiz kid, those in the rebellion, police officers, criminals, Sonya herself from the Sonya show, another teen who's also on the run, and then a less than stable individual. It's designed for fans of experiences like, well, pretty much anything from the back catalogue of Telltale games, and every conversation, every decision here, it not only impacts that character's path, but the conclusion of the game as well, because this does indeed have an ending. Every runaway leads one step closer to what is election day, and all in all, I'd say it took me right around 8 to 10 hours to see that conclusion. At this point I will say as well, I compared notes with someone else playing the game, and the experience here seems to be key scenes they play out the same way, but they can be in a different order entirely. Then also in between these moments we did see some very different things. With a great cast though, I can't really fault the story. I'd say a few moments are a little heavy-handed in the writing department, and they for sure dial up the reactions and the emotions, but I was impressed with its natural flow, as it had not only that serious kind of overarching theme, but it was able to double up as a character study as well, all with the occasional dash of humour. And there's a ton of themes here as well. They include family challenges, friendship, love, fighting with and against the law, standing by your beliefs, a divided nation, death, oppressive government, and even, I'd say, radicalization to a certain extent. It's not a subtle game, and its characters are often exaggerated to the point of caricature, but I had a great time. I wanted to know everything about them. I wanted to see more of this world, and then when I finished, it went ahead and dangled New Game Plus in front of me, and now I kind of want to dive in again and just, I guess, learn more. Gameplay wise then, it is a mix of elements to bring along the sense of facing kind of what is, I guess, an epic journey. While I'm keeping the footage today early game, for the sake of spoilers, I will say your experience and result could naturally be very different. The core experience though, after choosing your runaway, can be divided into what are 2 scenarios. There's on-rail moments, and then there's also first-person exploration. On rails here as well, I mean basically you might be, let's say, in a car chatting away with those around you, but the car, or however it may be that you're travelling, is completely controlled automatically. First person then, I saw a ton of locations, a ton of almost different elements of society, but think bars, diners, outdoor parties, political rallies, empty roads. The game clearly has a decent chunk of content and locations hidden away, so I will say I'm not sure how much I didn't see. For that reason, in fact, I wish it gave you some sort of tracker at the end of the game, just to give you an idea of how many locations were potentially left uncovered. That would be a big driving factor behind me maybe jumping in a second or even third time. The on-rail moments though, gameplay is simple enough. You could be alone, you could be with someone, or even with multiple people. You can engage here in conversation though, while also looking around your surroundings to uncover, those secrets. Maybe they have photos that will tell you just a little bit more about them. Maybe you can search their car, let's say. Maybe you can help them out with a simple task. Yes, I'm being extremely vague here with my wording, but it is to avoid against spoilers of what is to come on your own adventure. First person then, similar idea honestly, but now you have that freedom to explore these locations and interact as you please. Through both elements though, the game then packs it with what I would call almost mini games, like think dodging traffic left and right, and let's say a high speed scenario, maybe you're shooting, breaking into locations, playing a friendly game of Pong at the arcade machine. It's not the most in-depth of control schemes here, but they do get a decent amount of gameplay out of it. But yeah, move, interact, and then they do a good job of mixing it up from moment to moment so it never feels overly similar. It is, however, simple enough that you squarely set your sights on the characters themselves. Survival then isn't simply about reaching the border while evading law enforcement. Now I will say those moments are pretty tense, really enjoyed kind of the escape scenarios, but the main thing is you're going to be managing 2 meters, that's money and health. The health meter, it's recovered by sleeping, eating or drinking, will be game over if it does empty. Then though, the money piece, everything here costs money, the food you buy, getting less than kind individuals to help you out, or simply riding the bus. As you progress then, you'll almost level up your character as well. This carries over from run to run, but you'll basically be unlocking what are 6 skills. They include things like lockpicking, the ability to hack, and cleverness to win in conversations. The only other elements to gameplay then, each of the core characters, they have meters on the menu explaining how much of their story you have uncovered. For me, at the end of completion 1, I had 5 characters at 100% and 2 at 85%, though naturally, in New Game Plus, their stories could play out in a very different way. In fact, I could stand with a different side entirely. You see, that's where I think narrative fans will get the most kick out of this one. Your decisions, they do have a huge impact. The words you use, the symbols next to each dialogue option, that will give you kind of an idea of how that's going to change what is to come. And there's something incredibly exciting about the idea of jumping back and now basically trying everything the opposite way. The only other element really then is how you travel. You could choose to walk, hitchhike, grab the bus maybe, or my personal favourite, just go full on criminal, steal a car or two. These are not big locations at all, but this one decision point, you can see how different the road trip could be. Like I said, like Telltale fans or even fans of games like Firewatch, this is no doubt built for someone like you. There's absolutely a lot to like, but at that point I do kind of want to transition this conversation because this game is also not without its issues. So first, dialogue moments are occasionally met with chance. A dialogue decision will have a percentage attached to it and a dice roll that is unseen. It determines the outcome. Just not a fan. I'd rather be leveling up almost than relying on chance when these moments are so often some of the kind of weightiest moments in the game. Also in dialogue, I will say at this point, I felt like some of it felt just almost a little bit stilted. Like, do you want to ask me anything about the road? Almost like they're trying to, I guess, bake in a tutorial without explicitly saying it is a tutorial. Then the performance, and this sucks to say, but it's far from great. It's targeting 30 FPS throughout, but it rarely reaches it. On rails, it's normally around 27 to 30 with the occasional stutter, which is fine, but first person exploration, it seems to be impacted by the amount of detail on screen. I went everywhere from a solid 30 to some locations that were hitting as low as 14. This did harm the experience. I wanted to know more about these characters, this world, and that should have been my main focus, but it definitely broke my immersion. I walked into many of these locations when I saw something that maybe seemed a little bit more, extravagant, and I was thinking to myself, well, how bad is this location going to be? It's a shame, and while it's not a game that relies on frame rate, it's no first person shooter, you will still need to be forgiving. That goes for Handout as well, where performance remains mostly the same. So graphics, and it's got that low poly almost look to it where, like the personalities, it's over the top in design, and it kind of reminded me of Firewatch almost for a large part. Locations are varied though, and a particularly nice touch was as you progress towards election day, locations, they do change and shift, so even if you do maybe revisit the same ones, let's say once or twice, what you see when you return may be very different to what you saw first time around. The character models then are largely decent if you enjoy a more over-the-top kind of character-like design, and it does a particularly good job of displaying a political conflict with propaganda, and even some darker moments that if you're not looking for them, it'd be very easy to miss. Visually though, we do have problems. They used a cast to motion capture many of the movements you see. It can still cause some unusual looking movements though, and in fact, outside of cutscenes, the characters can be pretty static, honestly. The lip syncing is lacking also, and then there's pop-in and heavy pixelation throughout. The pop-in here though is unusual. I actually find myself questioning, was this an artistic design decision? Because rather than just almost appearing on screen, often they almost fold up towards you from the ground in front of you, and it's such an unusual kind of way of approaching it. Audio finally, and the soundtrack is stunning. The game's set in the 90s and the soundtrack can be described as pop, with some tracks that give me almost think like Damien Rice kind of vibes, and a whole lot of synthwave. Some relatively well-known artists as well if you are into the genre, so maybe check out the soundtrack over on Spotify. Wrapping up audio then though, solid if exaggerated performances from the cast on the voice front and some environmental effects to build out this world. The riot moments are particularly well handled as well. I really did enjoy seeing like people on the side of the streets and kind of like, you know, going away at their chanting depending on what side they were on. So overall, this is one of the hardest games I've had to review in some time because it has problems, and honestly a fair few of them, but I still really enjoyed it. I thought the story and the cast were fantastic, and I think most looking towards this game, that's what they're going to be looking for. The problem is the performance. It was a letdown for the Switch, both frame rate wise and graphically to a certain extent. With that in mind, I'm actually going to be giving my verdict today with a stipulation, and you can kind of decide for yourself from there. In summary, if you can handle an at times extremely poor frame rate, which as I say it isn't constant, rather location specific, but means you're going to be seeing it the entire journey, then I'd absolutely recommend you check this one out for its world, its characters, its decent runtime, and even its New Game Plus. You know, if you are a genre fan like me. Personally, this is a good 7 out of 10. If you can handle all of that, including the fact it is going to even impact immersion at points. If you can't though, I'd say here a 5 out of 10. In fact, I'd say don't buy this at all, honestly, because it's going to get to you. It's just going to be way too much. Its story just won't get you through the weaknesses. Alright, so a little bit looser with my verdict than normal, but hopefully this helps you get to a decision that is going to be right for you. Will you be adding this one to the library though? I do want to point out here, look, if this was a first person shooter or something, that frame rate would make it a no-go immediately, honestly. But let me know in the comments below, I'm curious, are you willing to push yourself through what is performance issues for the promise of a story that just absolutely delivers? With that then, like a shout out to the patrons of the channel who are just going above and beyond to support SwitchCorner. It helps more than you know, so thank you all so much. Then hit subscribe if you love the Switch, as much as we all do here. Join our growing family, and I'll see you all on the next video. Thanks everyone.